First of all, I'd like to thank everyone here for inviting me to this really great university. I've heard a lot about it from both Tina, and Jamil. I've been in Bangladesh now for 3 weeks. This is my first visit here, and I've had a very, very good time. One of the things I find really impressive here are the quality and the enthusiasm of students. When I'm looking for students, what I look for a lot is not actual knowledge. I like knowledge, but what I really like is enthusiasm, because one you can teach and one you can't. And so the enthusiasm is something that I see in abundance in our students. So this is what I was going to talk about today, is sort of an idea about why is bioengineering important. A little bit about my history. I grew up at Caltech. I now teach at Berkeley. I'm actually very happy being at a big public university. It's 27,000 students. I'm actually in two departments. I'm both in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Bioengineering, and I helped start the latter one. And so that's what I've been doing for a long time. I think the long-term goals for these sort of programs is, it's so funny, I'm used to running around a lot when I talk. One person once described my talks as watching a tiger in a cage at a zoo, because I was doing loops in front of this. But I can adjust. Time is right along here. The fundamentals for this technology were being developed by research. Then all of a sudden, of course, it takes off. In 1980 was pretty much the start of the miniature computer, the home computer. This is actually when the Apple and PC first appeared. And then it's just taken off from there. And then, of course, we've led into cell phones, which has actually made it really impossible not to work at all times. So it's dubious quality, but basically you have a growth. And this also requires sort of continuous input. Just to give you an example of what sort of things were being developed, long-term investments led to electronics with new capabilities, faster chips, and really this set up to Silicon Valley. Oh, by the way, at that time, Silicon Valley worked a lot with Berkeley, and they developed they donated a microfab. If you give faculty a toy like a microfab, they will play with it. So what happened then is they started making little machines out of it. They made little motors, they made accelerometers and gyros. And so now, on the right is a gyro. In your cell phone, you have a 3D accelerometer, a 3D gyro, and they're all one little chip. In fact, if you look at a Fitbit, that's where you see it, right here. Where's my little pointer? Wait. Where'd it go? I can't show it to you, sorry. Anyway, up there, the three-axis accelerometer. It's now just a chip. It's now made in mass production. They cost $2 a piece. What I'm suggesting for bioengineering, why do I think bioengineering is so great? I think we've actually worked for the last 20 years now on the fundamentals of this sort of nano biosensor world. Now this is all predictive, right? Because essentially, so we've started the basis, and I start seeing that there's going to be this incredible growth in terms of this quantitative life care systems that are distributable. And you are poised here to start looking at those devices, to start developing new devices. And I think it really matters, and I think it's going to happen. This is just an example of one. I have to put in something from my lab because I've got to show off a little bit. This is a device we developed in my lab in combination with a chemist who is next door to me. And what it measures is reactive oxygen species. Your body, I never realized this, you actually have hydrogen peroxide in your blood. How your body kills bacteria is by increasing, by the macrophages go and put out a whole bunch of hydrogen peroxide in the presence of bacteria, and that kills them. Also, when you have liver damage, your reactive oxygen species go up. So, one of the big problems you have with drugs is that they go through the liver first, and they could cause liver damage. So we came up with a device to actually measure hydrogen peroxide. The idea is that you could do this quickly if you're taking, there's some cardiac medications that cause liver damage. Nowadays, you go and get your blood tested, and they adjust your dosage. This you could do at home. The other thing when you think about doing home health, by the way, you have to make it usable by people. It can't use a lot of blood, because if you need to do a venipuncture and spin down the blood, then you need a nurse and you don't get the data. It needs to use a finger prick, like a drop of blood, or it needs saliva, or it needs urine. So how do we help this? We want to expand the skill set. This talk is geared towards BioEt, but we also have relationships with Bangladesh University. You'll have to forgive me. I just found out I was giving this talk a little while ago. The idea is we really need to combine, we are trying to work more with Bangladesh through Berkeley. And as Tina mentioned, we have memo of understandings with both universities, and we're trying to increase our access. We're trying to do some faculty exchanges. We're trying to somehow work together. One is because I see this as Bangladesh as an untapped resource for some phenomenal graduate students who could really make me famous. Because that's what graduate students do. And I think that this is really important because I think this is how you actually get things done. And of course, because Bangladesh right now is pushing IT, I think the sensors are really important because they provide the data. So right now, I've had one professor from BioEt spend 3 weeks in my lab, and she'll be coming back. We're trying to increase this. We're just starting some preliminary research. The goal is to generate basically confidence plus experience in the Berkeley environment that we can translate here. And then we have some more, as I said before, we have these strategic alliances started, and they are continuing, and we're especially establishing this path of getting grad students. I want to explain why that's important. When you have no experience with a different country or a different university system, and you're looking for your grad students to accept them, it's very hard because you have no idea what the levels are, what the letters mean, how hard the schools are. Once you get a few students through, then all of a sudden you realize how good the students are, or if it's not, or not, but generally from here I think it would be good. Then you start bringing in more students. One assistant professor of electrical engineering I just met he's at BioEt. His professor, he was the first Bangladeshi student in a professor at University of Utah in electrical engineering. The professor has brought over 2 more students. So you see, so once you have the good experience, then you keep going. And also you can read and understand the students better. Also with this interaction, it means we can contact a professor we know and say, is this student really good? And that data is enormous. And that's really one of the ways I see how we really grow this communication. I'm also hoping that we get more government research funding in this country. It's just really critical to get this whole mindset for research. It doesn't have to be huge amounts of money, but it has to be consistent. Often what you see are these big spikes in funding to solve a problem. It is the political solution, but that's not ideal. What you really want to do is know that you're getting a certain amount of funding continuously. And that's something that I think is really an important thing. Then what happens is once you have the research, then also industry will come in. Industry will not come in really until you have a research program going where they can benefit. So then you start getting industry leveraging off of what you're doing. That's great because it's a location of jobs, but it's also a location of where you find problems that need to be solved. And that would be the next step, I think. We have a joint university and industry consortium that's been around for 30 years, and it just continues, and it's just great. And this is the BSAC part that I'm a co-director of. It actually really helps working with industry. I like it a lot because they provide what I sometimes call is adult supervision, because I will try research that may or may not be useful, and industry often has a good insight into what is really good. So I'm going to skip some of the BSAC stuff because that's a little different. We have a lot of startups coming out of these things, so that's also one of the goals, because when you have the research, you get all these startups. And this is one of the things I think is really matters, is this long-term support, undergraduate research so that it helps students think differently. I think this leads to innovative graduate students or graduates, and this is really important, I think. This is the people who will help the startups here. They will fill in middle management. They'll start their own companies, and I think this will get you to 2021, Bangladesh 2021. So wait, before I quit, there's one thing I want to show you. One of the things that got me involved in bioengineering, hang on. I want to show you this video. Wait. Great. It's hard to see. Let me explain what this is. This is a video from 1960. This is one of the things that drives bioengineering. That is a white blood cell. That's a macrophage. So those are the things that clean, that get rid of bacteria. The circles are red blood cells. So they're 10 microns. Now, let me start it again and I'll explain what's going on. That's the bacteria it's chasing. This is low Reynolds number flow. It sort of pushes it away. Somehow, it's going after that bacteria. It ignores the other one. I find this video fascinating because before this, we had no idea. We didn't even know how these guys moved in the 60s or 70s. It's kind of like a video game, isn't it? But this sort of biology is just amazing to me. The idea of harnessing this sort of ability is amazing. The idea of understanding how that process happens. How does that bacteria actually follow only one of these guys? It basically must be a chemtrail, but how much stuff can a little bacteria, how much smell can a bacteria leave off? I mean, if it was a teenage boy in America using Axe, I would understand. But this is a bacteria. Axe clearly doesn't work here. Oh well. Anyway, so I just find this amazing. And so this is some of the research that, just understanding this is some of the places where you can see how amazing biology is. And we've come so far in understanding the biology, that's what makes bioengineering possible. That's what makes your interest in pharmacology exciting, because now we can start doing really new things. We're developing cures with proteins. We're developing cures using CRISPR-Cas9 and genetic modifications. We're doing all sorts of new things. It is really the start of something amazing. And I think it's great that you students are all interested in this field. I think it's really one of the fields that's going to change the world. And I think it's wonderful. And thank you very much for your attention and inviting me here. This has been wonderful. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okay? So thank you.